Well, time now to find out what is making headlines around the world. And here to help us with that is Solange Mouzin. Good to see you, Solange.
Hi, Laura.
And we're going to start with a story from Italy, where the government has blocked the export of 250,000 AstraZeneca vaccines to Australia.
Yeah, it is front page news, as you can imagine, in the country. And La Repubblica says that Mario Draghi is being firm on this issue. And the European Union has not objected to the ban either. Rather, Brussels, like Rome, has becoming increasingly frustrated by the vaccine makers' production shortages. Now, Corriere del Sera says that Draghi's government has felt this issue is one of credibility, that companies that do not respect their contractual commitments cannot be excused. Now, this firm hand could create international tensions and vaccine nationalism. But the paper says that Rome hopes to avoid all of that, having reiterated to Canberra that the ban is a question of principle and was not meant in any way to be a form of hostility towards Australia. Nevertheless, Australia has requested the EU to review the decision, according to the Sydney Morning Herald. And the paper added, though, that the government has reassured, nonetheless, its citizens that the blocked doses will not affect in any way their vaccine rollout.
All right, well, staying with the coronavirus for a moment, you found a couple of articles about how COVID-19 has been a source of creative inspiration for some people.
Yeah, as gloomy and as difficult as COVID is and has been for all of us, for some it's actually it's allowed them to get their thinking caps on. The Jerusalem Post tells us of a Dutch inventor who's thought up of a new way to test for the coronavirus. Instead of swabs or spit tests, well, you could be soon screaming your COVID frustrations and with a scream test. Peter Van Weiss, the paper tells us, has invented a box where you scream and an air filter is inside there and it tests your breath particles for the coronavirus. Now, so who knows, this could be a fun way to sort of get out a bit of scream therapy and also get your test done. Now, the coronavirus has also been a source of inspiration for illustrators. Le Temps tells us that cartoonist Patrick Chapat has won Switzerland's Best Cartoon of the Year award. The cartoon is entitled Coronavirus Eclipse, and it appeared in Der Spiegel last year. Swiss Info tells us that the best cartoons are actually usually chosen by the public at a museum exhibit, but this year, because of the coronavirus, 46 other illustrators took their place and chose this stunning image of a drawing of an Earth-like moon being overshadowed by the spikes of COVID.
Ah, yes, very, very creative there. All right, well, let's talk about something else, because history is being made. This Friday, Pope Francis has become the first pope in history to visit Iraq.
Yeah, and I quote, "After years of war, there's hope to restart and rebuild." That is the headline today of L'Osservatore Romano in regard to this long-awaited papal visit, a sentiment that is echoed by the Catholic French paper La Croix, which highlights what it calls the audacity of the visit. But with praise comes concern as well. The Figaro highlights the dangers of the visit, not only because of the bombings that continue to plague the country, but also because of the risk of catching COVID for those that come out to see the Pope. Nevertheless, L'Orient Le Jour says that the visit is not only a sign of support for the dwindling Christian populations in the predominantly Muslim country, but it also has a political use, or a means of highlighting a hoped-for, more peaceful future in the country.
And to Myanmar now, where the ongoing crackdown on the opposition continues. You've found a few pieces about who could play a key role in any possible return to democracy.
Yeah, Time magazine argues, quote, that the West, it blundered in its handling of Aung San Suu Kyi by isolating her over the Rohingya crisis, and thus paving the way for the junta to take control. But that now Burmese youth are stepping up and unifying, and that is where there's hope for a return to democracy, and not, quote, through Suu Kyi or her party or any form of international help, end quote. Now, the New York Times profiles the hundreds hundreds of thousands of women participating in the movement, and it explains that they're from all walks of life, and that they're joining forces in ways that have never been seen before. Meanwhile, Le Monde profiles one of these women, Ma Kiao-sin, who was shot in the head and killed Wednesday in the deadliest day to date since the coup. Now, Le Monde explains how this 19-year-old has quickly become a unifying force and a rallying cry for the resistance, and as it calls for justice and a return for democracy. But such calls for justice, according to one columnist in the South China Morning Post, carry risks. Maria Sio writes that the military will never back down, and that what is essential right now is not accountability or justice, but that the military be convinced to hold talks with the protest movement.
All right. And finally, the coronavirus pandemic has interfered with people's sleeping patterns a little bit, hasn't it? And so people are really looking for the best and safest ways to get a good night's sleep. And you found...
Yeah, well, this is for everyone who has anxiety at night and can't sleep because of COVID, but also for all of us here at France 24 who have funny hours. This article spoke to me for that very reason. And it's about what I think is one of the best and safest sleeping aids, listening to audiobooks and podcasts. But it is not just me and others that it puts to sleep here in the newsroom. Slate tells us that a journalist investigated Swedish audiobooks, and she found that many of them have production issues because the narrators of the books fell asleep while working on them. These on-the-job naps, they led to strange errors, weird noises, and long, long periods of silence in the middle of the book.
A few snores at the end.
Yes, exactly.
Send you on your way. Well, you were up very early this morning,
I
so
was.
I hope you get a good night's sleep tonight. Solange, thank you very much indeed, Solange Mouchard there.